In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to set up the interior elevations. We like to set up two interior elevations. One that is the finish that shows everything that the trades would need to know after drywall, and we have the rough drawings that show everything that would need to be completed prior to drywall. So the first thing we're going to do is create an interior elevation. I'm going to put that on the project interior elevations layer. Once I start drawing that, it'll ask to show it, or I'll have the option to show it. I'm going to go to face a stud, and here I'm just going to be able to draw a rectangle. That is the extent of the view, and then I'm going to drag back 2.5 feet is generally good. This is where the cut will be made, and that will often allow for cabinets or anything to be completely contained within that view. If you need to move it later, you can select using shift, you can use the arrow tool and just drag it to where it needs to be. You also have the option with the pet palette to hide particular segments. So if you have views that are either redundant or don't make sense, you can go ahead and hide those. And if you want to show them again, you can catch that back on the pet palette. Now let's open up the organizer and see what's happened. So as far as the interior elevations, we know how to have a group of interior elevations. It defaulted at family room. I'll show you how I set that up in a minute. And this is just from the project map. So this is just an interior elevation without any settings associated with layers or model view options or anything like that. These are just the current, and down here you can actually see what those current settings are. Now, we also have here the view map, and in the view map, we don't have any views of this interior elevation yet, and that's where we're headed. So let's go ahead and first right mouse and interior elevation settings, and this is an important aspect to this. The ID, the way we're using this, is the ID is the room number. Then the name is the orientation. You can put in the auto-populate fields here. We're using elevation orientation, which is the full direction, north, south, east, west, the full word. We're using the pipe symbol and then the name of the room. So what that gives us is 101 for the group, and this is called the group. There is an orientation, so it's actually just adding an extra space. Then the pipe signal or pipe character, then the room name. Now the views themselves are in fact using the orientation, and that's populating with the direction. Now this is the group name. These are the views within the group, and we have the settings. We can either use the group information, which we're doing here, and this is what we're going to do in all cases. So we're going to just be pulling in the room number, the orientation, and the room name. Now there are ways to set this up where you can have zones, and the interior elevations read the zone and find the correct name, and that's another level of automation that we're not going to take advantage of right now. The other thing I want to do is set the height of this interior elevation. So I'll go into interior elevation settings, and we're just going to do 10-foot 1 because that's the height of our wall. So when we open up one of these views, it's just going to be exactly up to the height of the wall and down to the floor. So that is setting up the interior elevation. Now what we want to do is set up the rough and finish elevations. So I've already created a folder structure here that's going to contain the finish and rough. So I'm going to come up to the group, and I want to move these as groups so that they stay together. And I'm going to set all of this. So interior finish, I want to do 1/2 inch scale, entire model, Masterworks pen set, it's fine. Noted, no overrides proposed. I like to use fit in window. Now, if I highlight the folder I want it to fall into, I hit save view, and now I have this here. Okay, and it's, now let's look at this. These are not the interior elevation settings now. We want the view settings. So this is a real simple mistake. If we go into the interior elevation settings, then we're modifying the information over here. We want the view settings. Looks very similar. We want to make sure that this is the interior finish. We're taking the room number and the name here. You can see over here what it's doing, and the group has no orientation. So the only thing we're going to do that's different, and I'm going to do it in a different window, but this all looks correct. Here, I'm going to type the word finish. I'm going to copy this, select those, and paste it in. So now when we look at this and we look at the view settings, we see we have a custom field because we added the word finish, but we're still bringing in the information from the project map for the name. And that's true of the group and in the individual settings. Same concept. We have the right layer combination. Everything looks great. So now all we need to do is come over here, change this to rough, make sure not only the group, actually you may not even need to change the group, but you need to make sure the individual views have the right setting. I'm going to go through this again. And highlight the rough, save view. Copy that, paste it in. We'll do a check. Now, for whatever reason, these views didn't take on the right properties, which is fine. Sometimes that happens. I wish I knew why, but I'm going to change them here. And when I changed the group, it changed everything inside. So it's, although I feel like it should have done that correctly, it didn't. And as long as you get them correct before you place them on a sheet, it's really no big deal, and it's easy to fix. So now we have two sets that are easily identifiable as the finish and the rough. They have different layer combinations associated with them, so they're going to look very different. In fact, the rough is probably essentially going to be blank as we get started here. So now we have the views. And here I'm looking, so this is a important element here. I'm looking at the actual interior elevation, what I want to be looking at. So I'm going to close this. I want to be looking at the view map. And so notice the distinction. So this is the finish version, family room, and it's telling you, you can read here when you hover over it, it tells you what the interior elevation that it's referencing. That's the 101 family room. but it's also giving you the view map version with all of the settings that we want to make sure we have. Here we have the thickness of the drywall on both sides, so that's very helpful. So this line represents the stud, which is the outside of this sheet. Now we're going to go back to the organizer. And you can use this view, but it's better to use the organizer. Now we want to find our view maps. Here's the family room finish. Now we want to go to our sheets. Coordination set, interior elevations, finish, and rough. So these are sheets. And we want to be using so this is correct, that's fine. Now I'm going to drag the whole group, and notice it's the view map of the finish into that sheet. There we have it. Now this is copy that, and this sheet is family room, and I'll put the room name 101 family room. And we can add the word finish. If it seems easier to read, you could also put the word finish. Afterwards, open the sheet, laid out these views, and I'm going to show you we're using a different sheet, but this gives you the idea. We have these views, they're all the right scale. Now let's move this out of the way. Let's go to here. I want to, first of all, expand so these are now the drawings on the layout. And we want to fit a frame. Title wants to be the NCS drawing title. And then we have custom settings to adjust how this reads. We want the circle to be 0.5 inches. Rotate to position. Drawing name, drawing number. We don't need to show a scale. These are often printed at half size and so forth, and that can be a little bit confusing, so we'll just turn that off as nothing. Back references, not really necessary with this. And the link to the width of the line wants to be to the drawing. Let's hit OK, and now we have the information here. East of the family room, so it's pulling in the information. And then what I like to do is on the drawing number, we're going to do custom, and I like to do an E in there. Custom, N in here. It's just a little easier to read. And also put the drawing number if you prefer to do that. But this seems to work pretty well. So now I have the 4 views. Move these out of the way, and the views want to start with the same direction for your whole project. In this project, we're going to assume that north's the best view to start with. What I want to do is I want to offset 1.5 inches so that I have place to put my annotation. I'm going to do that with each one of these. And that's 1.5 inches off the wall itself. So if you hadn't already had some annotation on here, you might have to scale it back and then draw it out again. Then I have north, and I want to put my east up here. So this room's pretty big. So obviously we'd either have to change the scale or put less on one sheet. But this gives you the idea. And I don't like that one as much. Yep, so that drops them to the whole layout. We want it to the drawing. And here we're going to set it to the drawing. Okay, so you'd set these up to your sheet the way you want. I wish the room wasn't so big. I'll redo this video and clean some of this up, but so far that's the idea. Now let's go back to our view. So I'm going to close this layout. And we're going to create another layout. Again, the organizer is much easier to use. So we have interior elevation finish, family room. Now we want to create in this here, we can copy this, paste that in. We'll put rough here. And I want to bring in the rough. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's open up this sheet. We'll copy those parameters with the Alt command for the drawing. Open up this view. And we'll inject these view settings. And we'll bring these out 1.5 inches. And then I think it's a good idea to trace. We'll browse for the trace. We want the sheet. And we're going to browse for the finish. And a couple things with the trace that are kind of nice. We can change the trace to red. We can change how transparent it is. And this can be nice. So now I can see which one's which. So I can see that it's this view wants to get set over that view. We're lining up the wall segments. Using F5 to move these. And now they perfectly align. I can turn the trace on and off. And when I look at these two sheets, they'll be right on top of each other. So other than this isn't the correct layout, let me go ahead and just take a minute and show you what that layout should look like. And use the organizer. So here are our masters. I will use control, hold control and drag this down. And I'm going to call this interior elevation, masterworks. Single. So all I did is copy it. Now I'm going to double click and open it. So now I'm actually looking at this layout. And the first thing we're going to do is change the layout settings. So we can hit those settings. And this wants to be 18 inches by 36 inches. Oops, wrong orientation. Control C, Control V. Okay. And that was incorrect. Want a landscape view. There it is. So this is more like what we want our layout to look like. And in our template, this is not my correct template file. In my template file, I have this already made. But I'll just show you the process of making that. And it's a really simple layout. Use slice to cut that. These are actually fills to control the line weight very accurately. Bring that over. Stretch this down. And I can go right. This is our 1/4 inch margin, so you can go right to the line. And we'll go ahead and stretch this all the way to our borders. Yep, fine. I'm using the backslash to shortcut for the marquee. This in here. Line that up. What we'll do is move this horizontally just to give us more space. And we'll section that off. So that's what we want our single to look like. The idea here is that the elevations are just left to right, one room, one sheet. If we want a double, where if the room's bigger, then we'll create the double. Double click that to open it. Change the settings. Now we'll go 24 inches high. Backslash to get the marquee. F8 to stretch. Bring that up. Now for these sheets, we want to hit the settings button, but we don't need to. We can just tell it we need a double sheet. And now we can see that it's a different format and we get a little bit more space. And in fact, we can just about, if we just tuck this in just a little bit, we're able to actually get this to fit. And that's why these formats are a little different, because we generally need a little bit more width. This room name isn't working well, so let's check that out. Double click on that to get to the layout. And we want to hold the upper corner as our anchor. We'll do the same thing for the double. Now when we go back to the sheet, now it's the text is running over that way and we have what we're looking for. So those are the sheets. Now let's go in and do a little work. We're almost done with this. We've created new layouts. We've created a finish and a rough, but now we need to work on the sheets individually. So this is, let's close the sheet, go back. We don't have to use the organizer now. We can go ahead and use this and we'll just go over to the finish, east. Here it is. Now we're going to turn on a trace and we're going to find, and this is important, you have to find the view. If you put the project map, you're going to have problems. You want the view map. So we're working on the finish, so we want to trace the rough east. Hit OK. Great. Now there's another cool thing. If you hit E for exchange, you'll go back and forth between the rough and the finish. So if this is working properly, and it doesn't look like it is. And so if it's not, we want to go into the elevations here, the organizer, and make sure our view map is correct. So rough. And let's look at we'll hit Q to find the layer combinations. Okay, so the layer combination isn't correct. I didn't update it, so we want to select all, turn them off. Deselect all, and all we want to see is the elevation rough. Oh, I did the same thing again. Sorry about that. Elevation interior rough. Did not get. So I want to select all, turn it off, deselect all. Elevation rough is on, and then we want to update. That's what I'm doing wrong. Now, this is red because it's ghosted. And now we're creating the rough drawing. And for the rough drawing, at this point, we're doing some manual work. Give us the flexibility. And we're going to create the fill. It is the wall plane. This is going to be 12% fill. Light purple. And there was a little delay there because of the trace. So something else, this button turns off, makes the fills transparent. So if that's maybe important to you, because I can't see underneath if I don't do that. And then I need to cut a hole for my door. And now I can hit E for exchange. Now I can actually click that door. I see it's a 2668, hit exchange again. And I want to that's the right dimension there. Perfect. So 2 inches over in each direction. And then we can continue on putting receptacles and outlets. But this is basically the idea, is that when you go to review prior to drywall, you can just check that everything is correct. And you can just use your one end of the wall and just check everything using the datum dimensions. So we're going to be using quite a few datum dimensions for this process. And again, E for exchange. So if I need to move the door, obviously there's going to be some manual work, but you'll be able to do that. But you'll be able to go back and forth to get these views to work. And now when we go to our sheets, and this will be one of the last things we do for this video, and we can see that our rough drawings are starting to populate and they're directly aligned with the other views. Okay, very good. Hope this helps. I know this is a little nuanced, but it's really an important aspect to creating documentation that's actually useful to everyone in the field.